Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin. Thank you for tuning in to our most recent episode here of our podcast, Secret War on Cash. And that secret war is on your cash. It's on my cash. It's on all of our cash. They are making changes every day, things that are happening in our economy and our developments that really have kind of changed the landscape of how our financial system ticks. And we're going to talk about that today as we have joining us my co-host, Chris Agelastos. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you.
Good answer. That's your usual answer. I'm glad to hear you well.
I went to my script.
I'll tell you what, the time you say you're not doing well, I'm going to be very concerned because I think it's going to take a lot to get to that point.
I'll throw it at you sometime.
No, please don't. I don't need any bad news. I like only the positive stuff. And that's hopefully what we can get into here with our podcast is things are changing, but look for the positive slant or the positive twist on it. Our first headline, I'll just read it. Swift plans launch of platform connecting central bank digital currencies with global banking system. For those not familiar with Swift is a global bank messaging network. And basically, as it says in the title there, this is they create a platform that connects banks' digital currencies and the banking system so they can all communicate and talk with each other, etc. The significance of this, from my perspective, is that, it seems to a lot of people that I talk to even today that they really find it hard to believe, they're not going to believe that the wave of the future is going to be no more cash. The wave of the future is going to be everything is done electronic. They're going to dig their heels in, pay cash where they can, and go into their bank and exchange things, do deposits and withdraw cash, things that we can still do. But this digital currency, this digital platform, it is here. And that is to say, banking as it used to be, to a great extent, really no longer exists. So as we look at this title and we look at this article and what's happening, one of the things that dawned on me, Chris, is we've been talking for several months now about what's been happening with CBDCs, or these central bank digital currencies. We've been doing so kind of as it pertains to the developmental side of things. But as I read this article, this really suggests the developmental side is kind of over. They're here. I mean, they're putting a platform for them all to speak with each other. So am I correct in assuming that they are here? And if they are here, what does this mean to you and I, or to people tuning in? Well, how does this affect our everyday life or our world?
Yeah, well, they're definitely here. A couple of things that they touch on in here that I didn't realize is that they've been testing this system for 6 months. So the Swift network has been testing with, I think they said 38 different central banks over the last 6 months, and have had successful tests doing electronic transfers in preparation for CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. They also say that 90% of the central banks in the world are already working on digital currencies. Now, we know obviously the U.S. is, and China, and we've heard of others, but 90% of the central banks out there are already working on CBDCs. So there's no doubt in my mind that that's where we're headed. I know a lot of people who want to fight it. Even Donald Trump, he's been very vocal, stating that he believes that digital currency is very dangerous and a threat to freedom. A lot of our clients are concerned about that. If everything's digital and they can see every dollar I hold and where I spend it and how I spend it, maybe they don't want me, purchasing certain items. Maybe they don't want me buying internal combustion engine vehicles. Maybe they only want me buying electric cars, or maybe they don't want me donating to my church. Perhaps these are extreme examples, but also perhaps not, right? I mean, it's certainly a crazy world. So I would say at this point, it truly does seem unstoppable. I don't think, we can control whether or not the world moves towards central bank digital currencies individually. We can certainly protect ourselves and take steps to diversify some of our money outside of the dollar. But as whether or not it's going to be here, I mean, it's already here. It's just not in full force yet.
Well, and I think what's of concern to people, and again, even for myself, gives you kind of some reason for pause with this whole move into the CBDCs. Not all, we have seen a number of headlines over the course of the last several months discussing or talking about how people's bank accounts were just randomly or arbitrarily frozen, or
Right.
the money just disappeared out of their account. Not just a few weeks back, talking about the one gal who reported fraud, and then she had 3 more instances of fraud reported, and the bank did nothing against it, and they still were not returning her money. And this, I say this because this is within the existing banking infrastructure that we've grown accustomed to over the course of our life. Now you move into this, and as you'd mentioned Donald Trump, how he does feel it's a threat to freedom and our privacies and things of this nature. And it seems like we're already struggling to keep our banking system in order, like this into play. And it's like, how in the world are we supposed to rely with any kind of confidence on the fact that, if there's an issue or something to that effect, that we're going to get some resolution? And if it means that we lost access to our money, who do we talk to, or how do we go about trying to get that money back?
Yeah.
So, and at the end of this article, as it did talk about Trump, and how he's averse to it and feels it's a threat and all those things, which I would agree with, actually. They do say in the end of the article, despite this, the global momentum towards digital currencies seems to be unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I'm going to segue with that into the next article, because the next article, the title is entitled U.S. Monitoring BRICS Digital Currency Push Amid the Dollar Decline. And that's where what's frightening is that when they say that this move is somewhat unstoppable, you have BRICS, who is at the front and center of this whole digital currency initiative or move. And as we've talked about ad nauseum at this point, BRICS is intent on collapsing the US dollar. And so with things moving this heavily towards the digital currency realm, knowing that there is this contingency out there, we'll call it BRICS, that wants to destroy the dollar, this is frightening, because, again, at the end of that article, they are saying the momentum globally towards these currencies is unstoppable.
Right.
How is this not going to mean absolute devastation to the U.S. dollar, and hopefully not, but potentially the entire U.S. economy as we know it?
Right. Well, that's, I think, the question. I mean, is it 6 months from now, or 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, that the dollar is completely dethroned? That part we don't know, but I think it's safe to say that that's the path we're on, and there's very little that can stop it at this point. And that's probably why they're stating in here. In fact, this was based on an article from the Financial Times, which I know not just everybody subscribes to. But it states in there very clearly the U.S. is very concerned about this, not just with BRICS developing their own currency, but then also developing that as a CBDC, a digital currency, and also into crypto variants. So, we're definitely headed down that path. De-dollarization is coming. A lot of nations, especially Russia, who is sort of I'd say Russia and China are kind of the big ringleaders here in BRICS, and they don't like U.S. sanctions. The U.S. has been able to use the dollar to kind of force people to do some things that we want, kind of apply pressure to them and their economies so that they can kind of fall in line. and that has worked in a lot of instances, but it's also made them, very resentful of that, and they want to move away from that system. So it's certainly coming. One of the things that I thought was interesting in this particular article is them talking about one of the major concerns, especially this year being an election year, is that these cryptocurrencies can be used for election interference. And again, it's one more way that this money can be used against us, and maybe in a way that we can't track it as easily, or maybe so that we don't know who is sort of behind the curtain pulling the strings. And it's another way for them to kind of mask what they're doing. But certainly going into an election year, it seems like we're rather vulnerable as a nation, and certainly our dollar is vulnerable as well.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the cash, the crypto, that whole aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I was just yesterday evening watching a movie, and it's interesting how many movies now, especially when, I went through the whole Blacklist series, and
Mm-hmm.
this was actually a Mission Impossible movie. I don't necessarily recommend it, but Tom Cruise does his stuff. But it's interesting, like how many different movies you find these criminals transacting in cryptos. And in this case, there was a transaction of $100 million that was being done in cryptos. And you see that, and it's like, and especially in our world, we're used to hearing people talk about CBDCs, cryptos, and all these things. But it really is something that has become more the norm than not any longer. I mean, it is something that, is just a very relevant way of life. And I think, the conveniences that are there, in my opinion, don't even come close to outweighing the potential problems that are there. So that is something that, we're going to probably have a lot more to talk about. And I guess what dawns on me is I reflected earlier on these people who are having difficulty dealing with their banks in the current environment. I can only imagine, and hopefully not, fingers crossed, but like the problems that are going to come as the CBDCs take over and the world of crypto takes over, et cetera. So thank you for that, Chris. And it is it has been a very quick evolution, this whole thing into the digital currency world, and certainly something that, as the article said, it seems to be an unstoppable force at this point. So call us if you have not already to get some more information on this and some of the other things, especially if you're looking at gold and silver. Now is an excellent time to do it as we talk about some of the things that are changing in our financial system. You can see our toll-free number on the screen or in your notes or on your link there to this podcast or our website. Visit us there. Follow us on social media, and please, if you haven't already, subscribe to this podcast so that we can keep in touch with you and keep you informed on these things. Chris, thank you. For those of you tuning in, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.